So are we talking about that? Are we talking about that show? I don't even
How many lights are there?
rock and roll.
How many lights are there?
There are 4 lights, sir.
There are 4 lights.
4 lights.
4 lights. 4 lights.
Heretofore, kicking off.
Here to go. Let's go.
Mid-Geek Crisis.
Welcome to episode 60, guys, of the Mid-Geek Crisis. My name is Joe, the Afro Man, and
I am Pedro, cautious online. There we go. I don't. We're never going to get that right?
We're never going to get that right. Okay, there we go. Boom. Boom.
There we go. Yes.
Boom. Follow us on Twitter at the Afro Man and Cautious, and of course, follow us at the Mid-Geek Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, music brought to you by Heretofore.
Very nice. I like that banner. Got it together. Wow, look at us.
I'm getting it together. It's only 60 episodes in. We can do this. We can do this.
The previous ones were just practice.
Just practice round. We're going live today. Going live.
So if my notifications have told me anything, you did something this weekend. What was it? What'd you do?
Just sat around. You know, played a couple video games.
Sure.
Just a few games. Not too many.
So what games you play? Tell us about it.
Man, what didn't I play? Oh, man. So, of course, as many of you probably were blasted by the Instagram, Twitter, Facebook bonanza that was my social media presence.
Mm-hmm.
I was at PAX South in San Antonio. So, PAX South, man, like, it's an interesting little con. It's not PAX East. And this year showed me that it's really not PAX East. There were no major developers, no major AAA studios at all this year. I don't know what that means. I'm hoping that's okay. I'm hoping they're okay with that. It's like
really close to PAX East. Like if you had to pick one, right?
But I think that was PAX East, dude. Like PAX South has held its ground. It's always the second to last week or the middle of January. It's always in January. But PAX East is the one that can't pick where it wants to be. This year
it can't line up with Easter in some way, so it always needs to move around because of the East Coast.
Right. So it's like
it's always moving.
Yeah, but this time it's like the end. I mean, it's 5 weeks, 5 weeks apart, and
you're barely going to be recovered.
Yeah. Oh, and I was talking to a lot of the developers there, and they were like, "Yeah, you know, like we're gonna go to East. We chose which one to go to, or I was talking to some of them that were like, yeah, we're not showing anything until East, kind of thing. Like they're just not. So you can almost it took a lot of the wind out of the sails of South. But at the same time, the good thing was a lot of indie developers there. So it was almost 100% indie developers. There were still some minor studios, like bigger indie booths, like Annapurna was there. Of course, you know, they were showing off.
They're at every convention, though.
They're at every convention. Yeah. I mean, they're the big indie publisher. Like they are a big publisher, but not as big. I mean, they're a film studio too, right? Like
it's weird to think of them as indie.
Yeah, but
there must be some sort of threshold you cross.
Right. They're like there would be like the equivalent in the film industry as like what is it, Searchlight, like Fox Searchlight. They're big but little. Like they got big money behind them, but they're funding little guys.
But not 10-cent money. Hey Kendo, thanks for listening.
Hey, what's going on?
There you go. Thanks for joining, Rolls, friend of the show. Look at all these friends of the show. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah.
We're getting the PAX South download from Afro Man, and he was enjoying that particular show.
Yeah, man, Annapurna is big there. I mean, they had a pretty big booth when it came right down to it. I say big because it was just a bigger presence on the floor. It took up maybe double wide 2-row section kind of thing, a square. They had one new game there, and you know, honestly, I can't remember the name of it. I have to look at my pictures. I didn't get a chance to play it, but it looked pretty cool. It was like this guy with like a guitar, and the whole purpose was like running and like sliding on your knees and. It looked pretty neat, artistic, kind of like most of their games. They tend to go to kind of the art house style. I mean, they did publish one of my favorite games last year, Sayonara Wild Hearts, and they had like merch stuff there. So picked up a little bit of merch there, picked up a pin. picked up.
Oh, there you go.
They don't have the physical game yet. The game, they are not publishing the physical game, and Limited Run is not publishing the game. I Am 8-Bit is publishing the game, and it's still on pre-order, so they did not have a physical copy of it.
Oh, well.
And they
digital,
didn't.
Digital is life now, anyway. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, you would say that, but that's also something I want to talk about. So Limited Run was there, and they tend to show up.
Tell us about Limited Run. I don't know anything about Limited Run.
So Limited Run Games is Limited Run Studios or publishing house, I guess, is their entire presence, their entire thing is they do exactly that. Limited Run. They do limited run physical copies of games that are probably published only digital, and what ends up happening is they do what they can afford, and that's it. So the game, they almost, for any collectors out there that want to have like full physical runs, these are the games that are going to go up in value very quickly. Like,
what does that even mean? Like, what does it mean to be limited run in a digital world? What does that mean? Like, this is like a vinyl press video game?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So they do special editions for a little. So for example, this game, River City Girls, that I picked up, is done by Way Forward, which has done all sorts of games. They did Shantae is kind of one of their big ones.
Oh, sure.
They did a bunch of other. They do a couple of remakes, a couple of remasters for other titles. So they're known for like the 2D style or the 3D 2D, the 2.5D. And this game's pretty big because it's kind of like a spiritual sequel to River City Ransom on NES.
Classic.
And it's a pretty neat game, Way Forward. But this is a physical copy of it, and it only came out digital. You can pick up the digital copy for $20, I think, give or take. It's on sale on Amazon right now for $29.99 for a digital key. And but
how much was the physical copy?
$34. So still under. You pay $15 more. This is the physical normal edition. There was a $75 special edition, which came with the soundtrack on CD, came with an art book, came with some prints, and it came in a nice bigger box. My sister got that for her birthday from a friend who is in the channel right now, Kendo.
So that's an interesting kind of...
it's boutique. So you don't need to own it.
Video games, yeah.
But there's also, like, for example, if you wanted to buy a physical copy of Shovel Knight, Treasure Trove, the entire
Shovel Knight. Okay,
that is a limited run game.
There's like an amiibo of that little dude, right?
Right. But again, the amiibos have to be done by the publisher, as in they have to pay for it themselves. So, for example, I just got a 3-pack of the amiibo set that they finally released. It took them 2 years to make.
I mean, it's I don't know what to say. Like. That sounds about right for any development cycle, but I don't know how fast
as
the
in
other
the
ones
toy
take to make.
The toy took 2 years to come out.
The amiibo toy?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't have any comparison for that. Like I don't have any.
You don't.
Frame
so
of
that's the thing. They're a small studio. They're big, small.
Right.
What is it? What's the studio name? Yacht Club Games is the name of the studio. They're a fantastic group, but they're a small studio. They are a small studio. They are the bigger name in indie. Shovel Knight kind of became kind of this indie face of a character. He's kind of showed up in other places, but they're still a small studio. They haven't been bought out by
like one of those characters who just blew up and got popular, right? Is that
right? Like Cuphead. Cuphead is Microsoft, but it's still a small studio, and Cuphead's game isn't even published by Microsoft. It's the physical copy is done by I Am 8-Bit. So this is the original. This is the physical copy. But what's also, again, they're taking it back. Almost every game you buy comes with nice art on the inside and out, and it comes with an instruction manual, something that you don't see in physical games anymore. And it is thick.
Yeah, I mean, but they're trying to get you to. That $15 has to be valuable in some way or another.
Right.
Well, you opened it, and I saw you just flip those pages, so the value just keeps declining. Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You're touching it with your dirty paws. What are you doing?
What's interesting is it's a physical copy game. You can pick it up sometimes at they have partnered with Best Buy, so Limited Run will send limited copies out to Best Buy. They when they get their first shipment, what they get is it. And that's it. They're not going to restock. And this game sold out day one.
Of course it did.
Everyone was picking it up. I think everyone in my group picked it up.
I sometimes I think I'm broken because I don't have any desire to collect. Like I would shed this mortal coil so fast. I would just upload and never have to worry about Meat Space ever again as soon as it's available.
Right.
Like this is all just. This is all just stuff. I can't imagine. Just give me a digital copy. I could take it anywhere. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to wash the dust off of it. It seems so foreign to me. I didn't even enjoy it when that was a thing. Like buying a CD case, buying a CD with the liner notes. I'd chuck all that shit, and the CD would immediately go into a case. I just don't. I mean, anyone who's on this channel, am I alone on this? Does everyone else love that physical copy? Now, I like physical things. Obviously, I have a lot of Dwarven Forge, a lot of.
We have talked about this in the show before.
I know
there are digital games that have disappeared completely. They're
Astronaut Go will say 3 things to me every year, and this is the thing he says to me.
Thank you, Astronaut Go. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I completely
Thanks for joining, by the way.
But touching feels good.
No, exactly. No, it does. But for video games, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. Video games.
Boom, rolls. Get it. Physical copy over digital copy.
Yeah, time. No, Kimberly, you're right. It's a collector thing. But how many different things? How much different space do you have to collect things? And then collecting video games seems so weird to me. Like there's no desire in me to ever collect video games. None. Video games is not something to collect. I'm sorry, controversial hot take. Not even, it's like a lukewarm take.
That's a pretty hot take, man. Most people like games, and they like to have games, and the games that they love, they tend to have on a shelf. Some people do like to trade in games. I agree with you. Like people buy games, they buy the new hotness, they play, and then they go trade it into GameStop and get their $2 worth of trade-in value. And
now they give you stock because they're going out of business. Right?
They're going out of business.
Absolutely. Give you stock. Store credits is stock.
I mean, I understand your take. I get it. I'm never gonna hate on that particular take. If it was anything else, sure, Beanie Babies, whatever. I mean, even Amiibos. Like I get it. It's just silly plastic. But I think there's just there's a thing, and I wish I could be as optimistic about being able to play, but I'm now almost 40. And I've realized that I'm playing tons of my old games. And the only reason I'm able to play it is because people have found a way to make digital copies of them. And as in keep digital copies. The problem is none of the digital marketplaces out there that we've talked about before are download and keep forever. There's very few. GOG is like download DRM free, throw it up on a cloud storage space, put it on a disk, and you can keep it forever. But anything you buy on Steam isn't complete. It's DRM'd. Anything you buy off any of the other marketplaces, the Xbox marketplace, etc. And we've talked about this. A good example is another game, kind of like River City Ransom, that was kind of inspired by River City Ransom, is the Scott Pilgrim game. The game based off the movie that was based off the comic had a great beat 'em up game that's fantastic, great soundtrack, great art, great whatever. But it was licensed by, I think, Universal, and Universal pulled the game. They lost the license or whatever, and the game is no longer available on any digital marketplace. So anyone who has it, you can go and buy PlayStation 3s with the game loaded on the hard drive on sale, because people that's the only way to get the physical game. It was never released on a physical copy. You can't pop it in.
So
it's a game lost to the ether.
No, I get all these things, but like in a like often for me in a world of infinite media. Again, we've talked about this as like a theme. This is the fundamental difference between us. In a world of infinite media, I'm okay with the few books having disappeared. I'm okay with a few video games having disappeared. If they were really worthwhile, we'd preserve them. So,
we do,
right?
Like, we hold on to them by downloading it to a physical PS3 and not being able to get rid of the PS3. Yeah, a good example is that damn demo for PT, the Konami demo.
I don't know about this, so I don't miss it. That's the thing. Like it's
but the
hobby
feeds fundamental difference. That's you
feeds the obsession, right? It's like how do you say the desire is there because you went out to make the desire, right? I guess is sort of the way. Like you wouldn't, if you weren't already in the hobby, you wouldn't give a shit about any of this stuff. And I'm in the hobby, and I'm not in that like nostalgic old game. And as for totems, Jordan, we all have our totems, right? I've got an old D&D book that I love and I've had forever, and it's so old that my brother has signed it and I signed it. We both used it. Yeah, nothing's lasts forever. Books will be around 10,000. Tell that to the Library of Alexandria, right? So like books have disappeared. We've lost tons of things. Yeah. And I'm sure like the thing about these folks who archive games, they do wonderful work, right? So there is lots of folks out there who make it a sort of scholarly endeavor to digitize and preserve these games forever and ever. Move them to new hard drives, save them in the cloud, whatever you're supposed to do. I'd be surprised if your PlayStation 3 works in 10,000 years. That's what I'd be surprised by. Or your Nintendo Switch, which is a nice piece of hardware.
That's funny that you mentioned that. And this is something that
honestly, I'd be surprised if any of us are.
Let me. This is good segue. Good segue here. Good segue, sir. Good segue. This came up this week, and this is a good website, Gaming Alexandria. I wonder why it's called that.
Yeah, because of the library. Sure, I get it. Anybody was
Coolie Skunk.
Okay.
This particular game was never released on the SNES. What it was released on was back in it was eventually released on a PlayStation version, which is a completely different version than this one. What ended up happening is this game was broadcast on a satellite view. Back in prehistoric days of the SNES, there used to be a service in Japan called the BSX of Satellite View, which was you put in this cartridge and then you connected it to a satellite service and it would download games to your thing, trial games that weren't out yet, games that were coming out kind of thing, and allowed the public to play it, like Sega Channel here in the US.
Sure. I get it.
But when it downloaded the game to the cartridge, it was there until the next update, and then it would wipe the cartridge and put a new one on there. There was a cartridge sitting at a store in Japan that had this game on it, Coolie Skunk. Coolie Skunk was never released on the SNES. The only copy of it that existed was on this one particular satellite. The source code has been lost. The developer is long gone, and it was sitting in a store. And they finally were able to grab it, pull the digital copy off of it, and then they were able to unlock it because since it was locked, it was set for a demo mode. It was only the first 3 levels, but they found that the entire game was on there. And now we have this.
What a different world.
What a different world, right? The entire game was loaded down there, but there it is. Here's
and exactly, 30 people rejoiced. Right?
No, there's a huge community that's been very happy about it.
The furry skunk. So for all the kids who think they invented cosplay, 1995. Come on.
Oh,
Rock and roll.
But here's the difference between the Super Nintendo version and here's the PlayStation version, and it's a completely different game on certain aspects. But there it is. 24 years later, fast forward, this 8 megabit cartridge for the satellite view modem was found in a display case at Super Potato. Sold for about $500. The community came together, bought it, and pulled the game off. And so now it exists again. It has life in some way, shape, or form.
That's an amazing story. I'm so excited that someone found digital trash and brought it into a museum for future generations to admire on the walls or on their systems. I look forward to a future where I can digitize myself and enjoy it in a digital world, right? That's what I look forward to. I'm sorry.
Why do you poop on everything? You are such a shit.
I was first nice, and then I was not. That is the way I am.
Did anyone hear anything nice come out of his mouth in any of this conversation, guys? I'd like to hear, please someone post down there something nice he said. I would like to hear it. He's so negative, folks.
That's not negative. I just don't.
His heart. What happened?
I just say.
Who hurt you? What video game? What physical game hurt you?
No.
Point onto the cartridge where it hurts you.
I'm just ready to move forward, I guess. I guess that's all. But that's great. I think it's great that folks out there do that sort of digital work and save the digital stuff out there.
Yep.
And not to say that I haven't played a lot of Super Mario Brothers 3 on my Nintendo Switch. That's good times.
That said, another game that I picked up at PAX and I thought would be fun to talk about was there's a studio called Retrotainment Games, and these are them, and they're fun. I got to talk to the dev, and they rewrote an entire regular Nintendo engine. They decided to code in NES and limit themselves into the NES. and create a brand new game. And they've made a few, but their big one is Haunted Halloween 85, and 86 is the sequel to that. And what's cool about it is you could buy the game on Xbox for I think $5. Pick up a digital copy of it for PlayStation 4 or Xbox. But since they limited themselves to the hardware of the NES, they didn't program themselves out of it. AKA, the game is an NES game, so they didn't go outside of the perimeters of that engine, and so the game is ported. And I bought a physical copy. And I decided to buy. What's funny is they made the game in English and they translated the game to Japanese and put it on a Japanese style Famicom cart. And I bought the Japanese style cart. So he was very excited because he only brought 2 copies of it to the con in Japanese like this. And I was like, I'll take the Japanese version.
That is a labor of love.
That is a labor of love. There is an actual cart in here that they programmed onto. So actual physical chips, which is pretty neat, I think.
And so, how do you know what you're doing when you're playing the Japanese version?
I don't. I'm going to figure it out.
Okay,
it'll be fun. It'll be its own thing. So I'm gonna stream this for them for Reclaim. I've already tagged them, and I told them that I'd stream it and show them, kind of tag them on it. So this will probably happen before the end of the week.
Navigate it, as you have no idea.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never played it. I did play a little bit of it on at their booth. It looked fantastic. It looked fun. What impressed me about it wasn't just that, oh look, here's a physical game. A lot of people do this, but what I liked is when I looked at it, I was like, that's running on NES. Like, it was doing some things that I'd never seen an NES game do, or it was really pushing the limit of the NES. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. They really pushed the boundaries of what the NES could do.
Yeah, I can see that. Except this isn't an emulator at all, right? This is an actual
so I
NES
think,
game coded in an NES.
And again, if they ever see this, I would love for them to correct me. But what I'm guessing is they made an NES game and then they packaged an NES emulator together with the game and then threw it onto the Xbox or whatever. Right, so basically it's an NES emulator running their own cartridge in the interface, which allows them
where they
to play.
Do like the arcade ports and things like that, right?
Right.
The arcade screen, but it's sort of just still emulating inside the game. It's
still emulating it in some way. So I'm guessing that's what they did, which is pretty neat. But I mean,
can't wait to see the broadcast. We should do it and I could just comment on it. I could just hate on it the whole way through. Or it's a moment for me to practice loving things. How's that? Maybe I just didn't get enough practice growing up. I wasn't hugged enough. That was the
problem. You were not hugged enough. Not hugged enough.
Or I mean, let's talk about the direct opposite of hugging, being hugged. Let's talk about someone who probably has hugged too many people non-consensually.
So quick segue from PAX South. While we were at PAX, some things were said.
Some things were said
by someone who I would have at one point been like, oh, this guy would be a good president. Not anymore.
I got 2 things to say. Let's put it up. Why do we keep asking guys this old questions? Like, their opinions will almost never be something we want to hear, and you're just going to get dragged. Like, they're just going to get dragged anytime they open their mouth. So this guy called Joe Biden, presidential candidate, former Vice President Joe Biden.
Uncle Joe, creepy Uncle Joe now.
Game developers, little creeps who make titles that teach you how to kill. Now, he's not wrong about game developers. There's a lot that are creeps out there, but it's not a nice thing to say. And B, teach you how to kill is so 1990s garbage about video games. I cannot believe anyone is still saying this. Especially a presidential candidate who wants to theoretically win, right? Like, how do you insult gamers in this way, right? This is it's just what are they called? Unforced errors on Joe Biden here. Just be like games are okay and people should play games. That's pretty much it. Yeah, make SNL great again. Like, what is this? What is this? What the heck?
I don't know, man. Like Biden, I liked Biden, but then he opened his mouth too much during this presidential run, and he's been, some stuff has come into light, and I'm like, oh man, dude, you are still creepy. But I mean,
it turns out he's just another 70-plus-year-old man.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong. They're just what they are, and they're gonna say stupid stuff. That's why you're always like, oh, grandpa. Like, that's just what happens with these old men. And and also, I guess once you get to that age, you could just say whatever you want, and no one's really gonna throw you in jail, right? So
why not just say it? When you turn 70 and you want to say whatever you want, don't run for president.
But they're literally the only people running for president. Anyway, so we make fun of a lot of developers out there who may or may not be creeps. So you should write some angry letters to Joe Biden as he's dragging you out there. Joe Biden's really picked a good target to make fun of game developers.
Right, low-hanging fruit, folks. Low-hanging fruit. Come on, man.
Make games that kill, really.
Didn't we talk about this already in the 90s with like Mortal Kombat? Like
everything in the 90s is coming back. We're literally reliving the 90s.
Reliving the 90s. The dream of the 90s are alive and
rebooting the weirdest things. And can we talk about Bloodshot? Did you watch the trailer for Bloodshot? We're like rebooting Image Comics. Is that what we're doing? We're making movies about Image Comics now. We're
so
deep.
Yeah.
Did you read Bloodshot? You familiar?
Did anyone read Bloodshot? Actually, Bloodshot was an Image.
It was an Image comic.
Bloodshot was Valiant.
Oh, Valiant! That's right.
It was him and Exo Man of War. Remember?
So now we got
what is it?
Vin Diesel.
What is it? Ra the Sun? No, who was the Sun guy? There was a guy that was like Solar Man or something like that. It was anyway. Valiant Comics. They also held the license to Nintendo comics for the longest time. They used to have a Captain and the Game Master, a Legend of Zelda comic, and a Super Mario Brothers comic, which was actually pretty good for an American.
Valiant. Yeah. I don't remember any of the video game comics. I don't think I picked those up. I'm sure I picked up Bloodshot. I'm sure I did. It was, it was the dark, edgier side of
right. So it's Vin Diesel, right?
It's Vin Diesel.
All 3.5 feet of Vin Diesel.
It looks like
and they're going to do lots of close-ups so he doesn't look as short as he is.
Be nice to Vin Diesel.
I love Vin Diesel.
Dragons.
He lives his mile, a quarter life at a time. A quarter mile at a time,
That's not what he does. It looks bonkers. It looks like maybe they're trying, because it's Sony Pictures, so they're trying to build some sort of franchises off these comic book movies. And
I guess, but doesn't Sony already have Sony already has like.
Well, they only have Spider-Man.
Well, right? Yeah, and all of his villains, and so they're going to make movies about each individual villain, right? So we've got Morbius coming. We talked about that last week.
Yeah, but
and Venom and Carnage.
Every time Sony makes a movie, people are just going to talk about whether or not it's connected to the Marvel Universe or not. No one cares about the movie or the character. They're just going to look for clues as to whether or not it's connected.
Whether it's tied to the rest of the real Marvel Universe, right? Right. Man, that must be sad, right? Like, I made this thing. Oh, that thing is great. Is it tied to this other thing?
Yeah,
no, then it's not really cool.
Yeah, then what is it really? It's not worth watching if you're not going to be connected.
Right.
Right.
It's
sad.
Man. What else did I do? So, another thing, another game that I really, really loved at PAX, and I talked about this last year, actually, and I saw him at PAX, and that was Shot One, done by Red Moon Workshop. And this year they had a more complete game. They had been working on it for a year, and they rewrote the entire engine from scratch since last year. And they've introduced a bunch of new characters. And what's really cool, it's essentially a 3D. It's a mix between Windjammers and a Capcom fighting game, and it's really, really fun. Like, good little mini story that they've got going. The animation's really smooth.
You're fighting each other and throwing frisbees, or is it
it's more. It's not, when I say Capcom fighters, it's the characters are very Capcom-esque, as in they've got that like persona, like Street Fighter, or actually
it's funny because like I think of it as Overwatch-esque, but
right hero, the hero shooter, but I mean those are based off of
no, it's now that I think about it, I'm like, wait, Blizzard just copied someone, and I didn't even realize they had copied someone.
Again, you talk to the devs. And I go, your logo is very Project Justice, and they're like, it's exactly like Project Justice. I mean, like, You look at the artwork and the here's the logo for rival schools, United by Fate and Project Justice, and there's their logo.
Oh wow!
See any similarities? Yes, it's
similar font choice.
Yeah, absolutely. But they have love for a lot of older those style games, and they decided to make a game that's based on it in that way, shape, or form. And the gameplay is fantastic. It's fast paced. It's short. The rounds I played a couple rounds, and looks great. The development. Follow them on Twitter. They're real.
So it's cool. 1-on-1. I see the screen there. Is that
it's 1-on-1 couch co-op. I don't think they've got an online engine yet in any way, shape, or form. But they're getting.
Gotta get one so they can blow up Rocket League, right? That's
right. That would be a good one for sure.
That's who you want to go up against.
Yep. So, yeah. So what's new with you? I see you've been you played a little D&D this weekend. How's the campaign?
I mean we played every weekend. We finally got back to it this weekend. It was a good session. I'm doing my I did this in my last campaign. I'm doing this campaign sort of the flashback session where I start them off with the narration, and now we're gonna work together to get us to that end point. So cinematically, it's working really well, and that folks know they're surviving, right? And they also know what they're trying to do and get to, so they're pushing for bigger moments. So it worked really well. One of the things I'm always learning about myself is that I'm kind of a jerk. I don't know if folks have got this as friends of the show. And so
we've never gotten that vibe.
And I was like, you all need to take more risks. You're not doing things big enough. And then I was writing notes like a day later, all my notes down again and making sure I was covering everything. I was like, actually, they did a lot of risky things. Why am I giving them a hard time? So I had to apologize for them. I think when I get tired, I get cranky and I yell at people. Not true. Legacy, don't. I mean, I was on your stream earlier, Legacy, and I was kind of
yelling at kids. Yelling at people on your stream.
I was kind of a jerk on that one.
Uncle Cautious over here. God.
I can't help it. I was spawned under a bridge in the Bronx, and I've been a troll ever since. I just can't.
Is there an incantation? Do you have a curse? Like, do we have to sacrifice something under a specific moon?
No. Maybe we talked about this. You're the opposite, right? So all the joy went to you, and you're not dark, and all the darkness came to me, and all the dark joy. Yeah, it's exactly mirror universe. Okay. Maybe I'm from the darkest timeline, and somehow I wound up here. That could be
that might be it, man.
Oh man, that sucks.
That's okay. We're gonna find a way. We're gonna chip away.
It's great for me because I came from the darkest timeline, right? So maybe things are
everything's on the up and up now.
Everything's on the up and up, and I just
coming up, Millhouse.
I just don't know how to be happy. That's what it really comes down to.
So, one of the great things about PAX South is a few things. One, it's in San Antonio, so it's in my home state. Two, it's in a smaller city. San Antonio is a really fun, very ethnically diverse city, very Latino. And there are two things that I love about the PAX South embracing San Antonio. Is one, a lot of Latino developers get to show up there, and this year was great because they really showed up in force, and we had the Latinx in gaming group. They are fantastic. I met them last year at PAX East. I've been talking with them all year through Twitter, just kind of going back and forth. And they had a whole lounge, and I'm not talking just a tiny little room. They had a giant, 3-room setup with tables and a big stage. And one thing that I missed out on, but I met a dev, and his brother is probably the biggest Spanish D&D streamer right now, and he runs D&D in Spanish, and it was fantastic. And they ran a game on stage, and apparently it went great. It went absolutely great. The crowd was good, and what was awesome about it is they brought up 5 Latinx people onto stage, and they all played the characters, and you could really see that there was a lot more Latin infusion into the characters.
Sure.
And which again, it matters that representation.
What is that? I'm curious as to what that means. Latin infusion.
So it's culturally, right? So we're raised different. Things are different. We don't see things we don't identify with when we think of like fantasy, we might not identify with Knights of the Round Table and we see it because that's all
and Monty Python, right?
Monty Python, right? Like we talked about that last week, where Monty Python was not something that you were about, but if they were raised, the culture. When I talked to there were a lot of developers from El Salvador, Honduras, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Spain. There was a couple of people from Spanish region, Portuguese.
Very different viewpoints.
Very different viewpoints in like what's fantasy and what they grew up with. And so when you put them in a D&D world, how they react to their character, how they treat their character, while yes, they might have been influenced by things like Lord of the Rings and whatnot because of popular culture, all of that changes when they are given a character. Like you give them a priest and they might play it differently than, them doing like the I'm a dwarf with a hammer and whatnot. They might play it differently. They might play it like a Franciscan monk in some way. So very different things, very different culture, and that was great seeing that culture represented. Also, a lot of Latino studios were there, and I got a chance to get invited into the mentor. They had a morning where it was like they called it cafecito in the morning with mentors. So basically, it allowed people to kind of come in and talk a round table if you needed some advice and whatnot. And I went in on both fold. I wanted some advice and kind of maybe help out a little bit, just to talk about my years in tech and the companies that I've worked for and some of the big companies and how they kind of view tech and where tech is going. And it was great. I got to talk to a bunch of little guys. I met a developer from Tamaulipas, from Mexico, and he came over on a visa. And just came to visit, and his whole dev team, and he's making a mobile game, and we talked about maybe how he wanted to maybe publish that, how to talk to people. It was a game, and you could see the cultural reference in the game where it was the character was a drunken character that would walk around, and you use the gyroscope on your phone to kind of keep him upright, and he'd pick up like bottles of beer and keep going, and a lot of crude humor like farting and whatnot. And I was, it's very funny for them. And I was like, that's great. And I was like, so what are your views on this type of game? And he's like, well, I'd like to maybe get it published or whatnot. And I'm like, well, this game is a small game, so how would you want to maybe push that out? And he's like, well, and I gave him some ideas of like, if you wanted to get this maybe as a sponsored game of some sort, you really have to know that American companies like beer company wouldn't want to show negativity, right? Drunkenness. So maybe if you change the game mechanic is there, you've got a solid engine. What about maybe making it an energy drink of some sort? Like, oh, you're sleepy, you're tired, and as you pick up the energy drinks, you move faster and you have to move around the party or whatnot. And so that would allow them to slap a label on that particular bottle.
It's like changing blood green and killing aliens and stuff.
Right. So just changing, and he was, they were very receptive. Like, oh, I didn't think about that. I'm like, and he's wanting to go to GDC soon. So I was like, if you're ready to have this game engine set up, you basically have a shell of a game that can be then put out there, and then you could sell it. And while that might not be your final goal, and you want to make bigger, broader games, income is income, revenue is revenue. And selling a game like this to maybe some sort of advertising firm would be a fantastic step in the right direction.
Like Pepsi Man, like an Aver game,
yeah. Like Pepsi Man was a thing. Like right, exactly. Pepsi Man and
I remember playing like a Kentucky Fried Chicken tower defense game for hours on end. So
right. So those type of games exist, and he had a really solid engine. I mean, he loaded it up. And what was fascinating to me is one, he comes from a country that obviously income isn't huge. So he was showing it to me on his phone. It was like the cheapest Android phone available, and like the screen was shattered. And I was just like, I was like, that's awesome. And here he was with the tools that he had developing. And I was like, you've done way more than I have for sure. Then I talked to another individual who, I have to pull up his card and put it in the show notes, but he made a math game. It was like an educational game.
Oh,
and he was just asking like, well, how would I get this? It's like, I'm already published. The game's out on the App Store. And I was like, have you talked to teachers, maybe school districts, maybe try to get it pushed towards your curriculum of some sort, that sort of thing. Start working on an English version. Start working on multi-level. Start working on one that might be packaged for a school district, so you can rebrand it as like so-and-so school district math, whatever. And then you can sell it as a volume license.
Or teach math in your Spanish class.
Yeah, absolutely. Multi-language thing. And he was very receptive. What was great is this was like a kid. He was like 19 years old, and his dad was there with him, who had brought him to PAX.
God
So
damn.
it was great. It was a great experience. I had a great time. I met
Awesome.
a lot of people at this, and they're fantastic. Their whole thing is kind of pushing towards Latinos and Latinas shows and developers and accurate cultural representation. They had a good panel on that. For gaming. So it was great. It was absolutely great. They even had like a salsa lesson night, just because it was a great night. They had an after party. It was great.
That's awesome.
Red Bull sponsored them. It was great.
Seems like such a difficult. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because it's just one big lump they put the Latinx community into. When in my experience,
so many cultures, right?
Yeah, I mean, Puerto Rican or Nuyorican, very specifically, a non-Spanish speaking Nuyorican is extremely different from
they talk about that.
an El Salvadoran or a Mexican.
They talked all about that, which is great. When I went to the first panel, the first time I've gone to the panel at PAX East, they talk about how they're not all the same. Some of us, and that doesn't demean you in any way. That doesn't mean that you don't identify in that. You are a person of color. You might not speak Spanish, but that, we talked about. I even specifically, when I asked the question, I told them, hey, I am Mexican and Arab, but yet I was raised Mexican, but like I didn't identify with any of the Mexican people in my community. It just didn't work that way. Like I wasn't into like speaking Spanish at the back of the bus or hanging out, or I got made fun of. I was called white. I was, that sort of thing. And, here we are now and we're trying to identify with our culture, but we are who we are. And so that was great is, we don't have to be stereotyped. We just are who we are, and we still matter.
Oh, geez. It's so positive. Hey, I think Jordan was telling me about this. He's working on, Elaine Gomez is working on a game about the Taino people. Taino?
Yeah, Taino. Yeah. And there was another developer that was talking about making a game about the Tarahumara, the native race in Mexico, the running people, the people that have like the sandals. And making a whole game based off that.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see that kind of stuff. That's the kind of I'm sick and tired of seeing.
Look at these games just going out there training how to kill people, right? That's
That's right. That's right.
This is what the community is all about, right? This is what the creation of art and art is all about. So
and the second half to this bit of segue on the whole Latino and Latinx and is it's in San Antonio. And one of the things that I always look forward to is seeing the one band in person that I like to see.
Oh my God, I thought you were going to segue into the Alamo where they kicked the Mexicans out. And I was like, Joe, you can't do that. You got to see it. What is this band? Go ahead.
They're called Mariachi Entertainment System. And I've seen them every year at PAX South since I've been. And they are fantastic. They don't get to tour. Because they are all musicians in their own groups and whatever. But when they get together, they form into what is called MES. And they are a great bunch of guys and ladies, and it's fantastic. They've got an Instagram account, and their members are great, absolutely great. They're all different musicians, and their entire concert for PAX South is up on YouTube right now. So I'm going to share that later. But basically, they're playing video game music in mariachi style, and oh my God, there's some music now that I can't hear in any other way. Because they've done it so well. It's represented so well.
That's pretty awesome.
So,
you should play it out at the end if ever we get a chance, right? That's pretty sweet.
Right. Absolutely.
And I see they wear the traditional outfits as well.
They do. They show up on stage. And I remember the first time they were there, I walked into the stage, I walked into the concert, and there was very few people. It was like maybe an eighth of the theater was full. And then they blew everyone's mind. And then the next year, half of it. And then the next year, a little bit more. This year, it was a packed house. The entire theater was completely packed, and everyone was on their feet cheering and whatever, because the word had gotten out, man. They were awesome. And they had played MagFest 2 weeks ago. So they were huge there. So, I mean, they showed up to New York. I mean, they brought mariachi style to New York and played that music in front of a ginormous, which is MagFest, and which is awesome for them. So I'm happy for them. I'm great. They've got 2 albums out. Go check them out. You can, if you've got Spotify.
You've got physical copies, I assume. The albums.
Copies, of course. And that's more for supporting, right? Like they get more money buying a physical copy than they do a streaming copy. So I bought it. I got it signed. I put it away because I don't even have a CD player in my car.
So you literally have a physical copy you can't even use?
I mean, I do have other CD players I could pop in, but I mean, I don't have a physical
like on your
copy in
computer. You don't have a dedicated CD player anywhere?
No.
I was talking to my daughter about getting her a radio so she understands what my life was like growing up, right? Like she has no concept beyond it. She's like, what?
It's coming from the guy that won't like physical copies. You know, you're like digital world, like but you want to bring her down to the level.
I want her to sort of. I mean, I could take her to a museum, right? But I want to understand. I'll play a recording of it, a rotary phone. Why? Because I don't know about a rotary phone, but I
Maybe
think
a flip phone.
I think also it allows her to have her own electronic device that's not something that she can break easily, right? It's interesting, like how do you get into it when it's already the most advanced things in the world? I prefer CDs and vinyls. I'm completely isolated here. I am not that kind of nerd as these folks are. I got to find my people somewhere out there. There's someone who just has one hard drive, a small box of a room, and no clutter.
Well, I mean, Legacy has talked about this before. Our buddy Jordan, he's talked about this, how he's waiting for the day to just go like full bionic, like which is so funny because he was advocating for his physical copies earlier, but at the same time, like he's ready to jump in and just replace his body with full cybernetics.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, why would I want a body? That's I don't even want that.
You just want an ethereal like memory running around the interwebs.
Put me in a hard drive, and then when that hard drive dies, great, I'm dead. I don't even it's just like, huh?
What if you get stuck in like 4chan?
What if I get stuck? I mean, so you don't think I can survive in 4chan? I'll be fine.
You're the king of 4chan. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. You would survive.
I will be a lord among those people. Are you kidding me?
Oh man. Yes. Never mind. I take it back.
but also, I don't know. Maybe, it would be fun to digitize and be done with this mortal coil.
And again, every year at PAX we talk about the things that we do. We're 5 weeks away from PAX East, where we get to see each other again for the first time in a year.
It's gonna be crazy.
And of course we'll try to do something as we always do. And
I will be one step closer to death. Probably something terrible will happen.
Pin collecting is one of the things that we do.
Pin collecting, yeah,
absolutely. And this year, topic. If you've been following the show or whatnot, we talked about how I've been trying to get rid of like a lot of the extra pins that I've got. I'm trying to just what brings me joy, right? Like, I went in full hog.
Still collecting, but collecting only the things that bring
me joy. Right. So this year, one of the nice things is PAX or Penny Arcade has a line of pins called Penny Arcade. Penny, like PIN. And they have a lot of licensed pins and whatnot, but they always have kind of what's called a staff pin, a pin that the staff has, and some of them aren't interesting. Some of their faces or specific thing that they love, and so collecting them all really doesn't I'm not.
There's no appeal for it for you. You're
no
not
appeal for it. Last year at PAX East, they announced something that was fun, where they changed it up and they made them Zodiac pieces. So they became kind of a pie wedge, and so it made 12 pins for the entire Zodiac, and each individual member of the Penny Arcade group or creative team had one, and you have to go hunt them down and find it. So this year I made it my goal at PAX South to pick up the entire circle, and I was able to pick it all so there
amazing.
It is.
Look at that wad of gold.
Yeah, it's hard to look at with the light, but I mean it is a full 12 set pin. I'm gonna try to get I need 3 more pieces of this thing. This little golden bit is kind of a quadrant that goes around.
It goes around it. That's right.
Right, and those are special. Like you have to get those directly from staff members as they're walking around, not at a table. They have to be
enforcer.
Yeah. But again, these are the ones that I picked up, and I picked
got
up
the nice little star, the Explorer badges, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So and none of these were purchased. Every one of the pins on here was traded for.
Well, they were purchased.
At one point, right. But like I basically
traded up. I traded
up as opposed to a pin that didn't mean anything to me. Now I've got some good memories here, so I like that. And plus, I dig the fact that you got this whole thing.
Back South is kind of nice because it's a much smaller scene, and you've got folks showing up with.
So that's something that I think would interest you is I think they've heard us. So what they did is they added 3 different tables three different locations where they have like the cork board and drop a pin, take a pin.
Mm-hmm.
So right at the merch booth at the entrance, one at the Child's Play charity booth, and then now they had an entire section, like an entire like booth next to the Penny Arcade merch booth inside of the expo hall. Behind it, they set up a bunch of tables, and it's a pin trading lobby, like pin trading location. So you can go sit down in the empty tables and lay out your pins and trade without having to be in the middle of the hall or whatnot. So
wow, so people used to do it like corners of PAX East and things like that. Yeah.
So there was always people in there trading, and then they also had a cork board in there with someone manning it, kind of putting in the pins. And what's great is the enforcers walk up, and the people that are trading the specific pins, like the Zodiac pins, will walk up and drop like 10 of them up there. And then they had someone watching it, and they would allow you to do trade 2 pins at a time. So one, so 2, and then take 2, and then walk.
Someone just didn't come in and grab all 10. And
right. And they did that. Yeah, that made it nice, and it, you know, again, adds to the whole like flair. And so I enjoyed pin trading
nice,
this
because
year.
one of my least like parts of the pin trading is that long ass line to get in. So perhaps a nice space where folks are trading would be more fun.
Right. They still had the meetup. It was still long, you know, you have wait in the line. But what was nice is I didn't have to do as much because I was able to pick up a lot of this just from the other stuff. So that was neat. I'm excited for PAX East, man. Like I said,
T-minus 5 weeks.
I've got my dice. I'm ready to play some D&D. That's something I didn't get to play much tabletop. I did play one tabletop game.
Good. That means you're going to be ready to play some tabletop games.
Freaking tabletop. Have you heard of what was it called? Fire Tower? Fire Inferno? Fire. Let me find this
Dark
game.
Tower.
It's a board game. It was on Kickstarter. Yeah, Fire Tower. It's a not cooperative, but I mean it's I guess a battle game.
Put it up.
Let me see if I can find the there we go. Boom. So it's called Fire Tower. Got a 7.4 on Board Game Geek, and it looks fantastic, man. Like see if I can pull some pictures. You have these towers. You flip them, right? So one side they're not on fire, they're on fire, and you basically, it's a giant forest, and you've got these towers that you're manning, like, and the roll of the dice or whatever changes the wind. So basically, the wind is the
pushing the fire around.
Yeah, pushing the fire around. So when you play
Those
a piece of
twins?
fire. They're like little fire flames, you know, and the whole point of it is burn everyone else and keep yourself alive, kind of like manipulate the fire.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
I thought they were trying to stop the fire. I see now that it really is about.
Yeah, it's about the wind, and so here's this picture right here kind of shows it a little bit better. This is the direction of the wind, and so you roll the dice and you drop, and you have a bucket of water and you start like whatever, and then when you flip the card and it goes on fire, you only have a bucket of water and basically you're out. But if you die, that doesn't mean that you don't control the fire anymore. You then become like a vengeful spirit and you're essentially controlling fire. So you can like start pushing towards other people. And it looked fast paced, fun, about 15-20 minutes. And
that's about the right speed for a game like that, for sure.
Yeah. It looked great. And what's awesome is they've got an expansion going on right now.
Legacy comes in and makes the joke about Australia, which I was trying so hard. I was like, man, I want to be cool. I want to be cool.
X card. Where's the X card?
Where's the X card?
Oh man.
Think about those koalas, Legacy. You're not nice.
Yeah, God.
Come on.
They have an expansion. I think it's going up on Kickstarter soon.
Why do they already have an expansion?
Well, I think this game came out last year and I missed it. So this game came out on Kickstarter. It's already out. I could have picked up a copy. I didn't. I figured I'd pick it up at PAX East.
Does anyone put out board games now that don't go through Kickstarter first?
I don't think so, man. We talked about that a little bit with actually the developer of these guys. I was like, Kickstarter, man. Like, isn't that the golden age? And it's like, yeah, man. It allows people to really show interest in the game. If you're interested in it, it'll get made. If you're not interested in it, then it won't get made.
Or more appropriately, it allows game developers not to take on any cash risk for making the game.
Right. It's just the creativity. They put it out there. If people find it interesting, then they'll throw the cash roll at you.
Buy a copy before it's even fully developed.
Right. And then eventually, hopefully,
So, Jordan, it's interesting that you say it's cheap advertising. I guess it is, right? Because Kickstarter actually does a good job, but you're paying Kickstarter for that platform, right? So,
right.
I mean, it's not cheap. I mean,
that goes to them.
30% of your budget, right? Because that's what they take. That's That's a brutal cut for them to take, but it might be a good cut for people to take because marketing is not guaranteed, right? Well, Kickstarter is a pretty good guarantee for getting your game in the board game channel if it's a good game, right? Yeah, and then at the end of it, that's capitalism at its finest. A robber baron type capitalism. What's better than paying for something? Let other people, or even better, let the government pay for something that you profit off of, right? That's the best. And the game looks beautiful.
It looks great. The pieces are great. They're perfect little pieces that allow it to give it life. What was great is the developers had this little bowl on the table, and that must have been like a Kickstarter like bonus or whatever to have the fire, and that's where everyone pulled their piece out. But they had LEDs that flickered underneath it, so all the pieces looked like live fire.
Like fire, yeah,
it looked great. I was like,
I'd love to see actual 3D towers, right? That you can. That
would be great. Like you put it on there and then like strap
a light on catch fire or something like that.
Strap a fire on top of it, you kind of thing. It
looks great. Kind of like pretty looking boutique games. This is a game like this. What is it? Dragoon with the metal pieces.
Dragoon. We liked it a lot.
And be like, oh my god, this is a beautiful game.
That called my eye. That was the reason I bought it. And then when we played it, it was like, oh man, I'm actually in the process. That's funny that you mentioned that. I'm in the process of making a wooden board.
Oh, for Dragoon?
Yeah. I've kind of got the image, and I'm gonna laser a wooden board that I can 4 pieces quadrant. It'll be just the map as opposed to like the folded fabric. It'll just be a piece of wood.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. I was like, what's something that I could use my laser for? I'm like, oh my god, there we go. That's it.
I mean, you can't just draw penises on wood all day. You gotta.
I got a room full of them. This is a room full of them.
There's just pallets of them.
There's pallets of wood. They're like, oh god, can't get the right one. Ah! The expansion's coming out soon on Kickstarter. They're great guys, great devs. The expansion has something called a firehawk, which I apparently didn't realize it's a real animal. Like it's a hawk. Apparently, hawks are a problem with fires and forest fires in the northeast, where because of it, they see fire and they pick up branches with fire and then drop it randomly into the forest, which starts forest fires.
That's fucking awesome,
right?
Hawks are already like vicious birds. Like hawks are assholes. Oh, yeah.
They totally are. They're like, ooh, the cute bunny. Ah!
Boom. Oh, come on, Legacy.
Oh, come on. X card, man. Come on. Too soon. Oh, you birds. Jesus.
I love the idea because have they learned that like fire will flush out small animals, right? Like,
I don't know.
That's okay. So Legacy just said that they use it to flush out smaller animals, so that they can go and pick up. Or firehawks are just like fuck you, nature, burn up, burn. Love to watch it burn.
Yeah, this was them on Kickstarter, and it was funded in under 2 hours. All 16 goals were reached. So
I mean, you game that right. So your goals are usually like $2,000, and you have enough money. You put that seed, so you get because the algorithm rewards you for being funded early. You actually get advertised more, if I understand the algorithm and things like that. If you're funded earlier, you'll get more pushes up to the top and things like that. So
yeah, I guess so. Inside the box, so it's not an expensive game. $39, 135 pieces, and that's
sure that's 40 or 5 now or 50 now, right?
I think they wanted $40, 44. 24 broke. I mean, it looked great, and I'm excited to see more. So the stretch goals were linen finished, fire card, better card, tower ablaze. I mean, all this stuff eventually was put into the final game.
I bet.
So
good for them, $76,000. That's nice. I mean, I'm still waiting for my vampire game. Right, this is the thing that really. This is why sometimes Kickstarters I just go crazy this way.
Yeah. So that game never wasn't it supposed to launch soon?
He actually has the physical copy now. He's finally sending it out. I think in like a week.
1,000-year-old vampire, right?
Yeah, 1,000-year-old vampire. Just one of those things for those artists, where I think these smaller one-person operations where it isn't as critical to get out, they want it to be perfect. So I think if you asked him, I should ask him what took so long. He would be like, I just wanted it to be perfect. I obsessed over every tiny detail. But it looks beautiful. Can't wait for it to come out.
Yeah.
And that means it'll hit me just in time for me to support the Dwarven Forge one coming out soon, right? So that's really I try to stay out of Kickstarter now. I used to do a lot of funding there, but I'm going to stay out of it and just do Dwarven Forge and Bones from now on.
Man. So quick little shout out to a friend of mine who I got to hang out with at PAX, James, who is one of the hosts at thesurlynerd.com. Go check them out. They've got another show kind of like this format where they talk
on Twitch.
They are on Twitch. They are on. I mean, just follow them. Just go to thesurlynerd.com. They're a podcast. They do a video cast as well. They just took their first Twitch money, which was I think their first $100 that they finally made off Twitch.
Way to go!
They invested it and bought a couple lights and stuff for the studio, so that they got some stuff going. So
not cocaine. I don't understand.
Not cocaine. That's what I said. I told him, I was like, James, no cocaine, and he was like, no. I couldn't find enough cocaine for $100.
Truly not 80s nerds is what I'm saying. That's for
sure. But go check them out. I always want to plug folks. Their shows come out on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So watch them, and then remember Tuesday's us.
Oh, that's nice. And Brother Sister is on Tuesdays as well. So that's nice. Yeah, we should do like a minute or two plugging other shows on this.
Of course, like I said, like and subscribe, like and subscribe for sure. Get a chance, go hit us up on Twitter. I'm a lot more active there now. Twitter, you should see the names up here, the Mid-Geek Crisis, and then at Mid-Geek, and then mid_geek crisis. And then again, yes, that's right. Add us on the tweets. Those are our actual handles, and on Instagram, and of course, like I said, music by Heretofore on the intro. Guys, episode 60 is over with.
This year, you are going to start saying folks instead of guys.
Guys.
Instead of saying guys, you are going to start saying folks. That is my mission.
All right. Well, you keep correcting me on it. Say guys and gals, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
People might not even identify as one or the other, right? We just got to use a full-on generic term. Folks. There you go.
Y'all. And I should be using y'all. I'm from Texas, y'all.
I've been called worse. Yes, Rolls. We know. I know. And also, Jordan, we might have fans that are not humans, and in fact, maybe furries. So we have to accept them as well, folks.
Man, there was some great interaction with some furries at PAX South, and they were great. They were out in force, and what was great about it is, you want to laugh because they've been the butt of jokes for years. But what was funny is, I got to find the stories here. I can find it. The furry community showed up and like raised like $3,000 for fires in Australia. Like no other group made that amount of money. Like it was just like they were like, here you go. Here's a group that constantly gets made fun of for like their quirky lifestyle, and then here we go. They're like, they came together and was like, here's $3,000 to save like wildlife in Australia.
Kind of things we don't understand, right?
I know, right. But here we go. Look at that. They make it fun of, and they still gave money to a good cause. So again,
be kind.
Be kind. I love you guys. Another episode in the can. Love each other.
There you go. Love it.
Take care. Have a good one, guys.